Hello and welcome to the European Parliament in Brussels for this new edition of Talking Europe. Have Europe's conservatives made a pact to boycott François Hollande? According to Der Spiegel, Merkel, Monti, Rajoy and Cameron have all secretly decided not to receive Nicolas Sarkozy's main challenger in France's presidential election. They're believed to be angry at Hollande for seeking to renegotiate the fiscal pact that was signed in Brussels last week. Who's afraid of François Hollande? I'll put the question to my guests who will soon join me on our set here at the European Parliament. In the second part of Talking Europe, I'll talk to the Russian ambassador to the European Union as Vladimir Putin wins a third term in the Kremlin. I'll ask him to react to allegations of fraud during the election. But let's start on our set here at the European Parliament. Is there a secret deal to spurn François Hollande, the socialist candidate in the French election who is currently leading in the polls? Well, let me introduce you to my two guests here on this set. Catherine Trautmann, hello. Hello. You're a French MEP from the Alliance of Socialists and Democrats. You're a leading member of the French Socialist Party. You served as culture minister in Lionel Jospin's government. You also served as mayor of Strasbourg. And of course, you're a staunch supporter of François Hollande. Also on this set, Yorgo Chatzimarkakis. You're a German MEP of Greek descent.
Yes,
very interesting combination these days, I would imagine. You belong to the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats, and at home, of course, your party is the junior member of the coalition with Angela Merkel. And I'll start with you with a very simple question. Who is afraid of François Hollande?
Of course, Mrs. Merkel herself has an interest in getting her fiscal union, fiscal pact through. Monsieur Hollande said he's against it, so she needs to get rid of any competitor. That's why maybe she supported Mr. Sarkozy that much, which was unheard of, the way with which Mrs. Merkel was supporting him.
Do you agree that Mrs. Merkel should be afraid of François Hollande?
I think that she shouldn't, but perhaps she is afraid because she has a problem, in the country with her coalition. And if François Hollande wants to discuss some points of this treaty, it's in contradiction of the way she wanted to lead with Nicolas Sarkozy a bit, not a bit, but too much, exclusively, this fiscal pact. And we say that this treaty was not useful because we decided in this European Parliament measures to respect discipline, budget discipline, but we think that it's not sufficient and we need to have a strategy on growth and employment. And this is the interest, not only for France, it's the interest for European citizens.
We'll discuss in more detail what François Hollande wants to renegotiate, but first let's watch our report with one question, of course. Is there a conservative pact, a secret deal to boycott François Hollande?
On the campaign trail to be France's next president, François Hollande has visited Berlin, London and Rome. Yet the leaders of Germany, Britain and Italy have refused to meet with him. An intentional snub on the part of these European heads of state, according to Der Spiegel. Merkel, Cameron, Monti and Spain's Rajoy allegedly have a pact not to meet Hollande because of his promise to renegotiate the recently signed EU Stability Pact.
Have you seen how foreign heads of state are behaving during this election campaign? They want to impose their will on the French people.
All the governments named in the article have denied the existence of any such pact, saying that it simply isn't protocol to meet presidential election hopefuls. Sarkozy's prime minister dismissed the allegations as a joke.
François Hollande thinks he's more important than he really is. The idea that all of these heads of state have called each other to talk about him, well, no one who's ever worked in government believes that for 1 second.
Less than 2 months before the election, Hollande is well ahead of Nicolas Sarkozy in the polls. So this controversy was a welcome opportunity for the incumbent president to paint his opponent as isolated among regional leaders, hoping to gain some ground.
Mr. Chatzimarkakis, do you believe in the existence of this pact? Now, Der Spiegel probably has good sources. All leaders have denied the existence of the pact. What is your look on that?
Well, it seems logical that Mrs. Merkel did do some telephone calls, but it's very dangerous. We don't have a great coalition yet in Germany. We might need, for bringing through the parliament the fiscal pact, need the Social Democrats. And that's what she's afraid of.
You need a two-third majority in the Bundestag, so you need
right.
the Social Democrats on board.
That's right. And if the socialists would be very intelligent, they would use, of course, this fact in order to make a Social Democrat-Socialist alliance between Sigmar Gabriel, the leader of the German Social Democrats, and François Hollande. But it's dangerous for the European project. I tell you why. Because the French-German couple does not exist, or is not based on conservative leaders or on socialist leaders. It's based on a prime minister and a chancellor. We have very good examples, Giscard d'Estaing and Helmut Schmidt, who were centrist, one of them, social democrat, the other one, Helmut Kohl, François Mitterrand. François Mitterrand was socialist and Helmut Kohl was conservative, and they worked very well together. Now, if you refuse to meet with a leader or common future leader only because he is from another party, that might put in danger the European Union.
To which some reply, the problem is that there is an agreement at the European level, and it's irresponsible for François Hollande to want to undo what has been done. What do you respond?
You know, a treaty which is signed, but which is not ratified, and a treaty which is commented, as Mr. Rajoy said, I will sign it, but I cannot respect it. The fact that we have a referendum in Ireland, you know, there are many questions. That's why it was dangerous to go through an intergovernmental treaty, preferably to the work we did in this European Parliament with the Commission, with the Council, which was evident and normal. And we could complete. We have lost time, we have lost credibility, and we could show that after more than 16 summits, we just had a treaty about austerity. So I don't know if this new from the Spiegel is real or not. It will not be confirmed, it will not be infirmed. It's not a problem for François Hollande. But he wanted, just because of what Jorgo said, he wanted to show that even if he was of another party, of the left party in France, he would like to meet Angela Merkel because it's a privileged relationship we have with Germany instead of any consideration of a political partisan aspect. So this had to be said. She had received, of course, before, in 2007, the two candidates, Nicolas Sarkozy and Ségolène Royal. And I know the fact that Nicolas Sarkozy needs to have a support outside because he doesn't have such a support in France. But I think that the heads of states of other countries cannot replace the voice and the votes of the population.
What do you reply to those who say it's irresponsible to want to renegotiate? Now, Angela Merkel uses the argument, she says, when I was elected, I inherited the Turkish issue, as she said. I'm against Turkey entering the EU, but because the previous government took decisive steps in this direction, I will go ahead. What do you respond with that?
Well, we are not through yet. I mean, what we have now is some signatures of member states. It has to be ratified, and this is the big task. And François Hollande comes early enough in order to change the plans of Mrs. Merkel. But I think he would be right, and he would do good to the whole European development if he would say, I respect the austerity issue, but I wish on top, and Catherine elaborated a little bit on that, I want a Marshall Plan for Europe. We see what happens due to austerity policy in some member states, especially the country I know very well, in Greece. It doesn't work out. We need measures of economic development, of growth, and that has to be a cohesive policy, a political approach. And if Monsieur Hollande could indeed together with Gabriel, but also together with the German government now, lead to such an effect, I think he would win a lot of votes, a lot of support, but he wouldn't put in danger our European project. Because that is also something he is accused of. I don't think so, but he has to be very careful not to block things beforehand and not to ask for the real thing. The real thing is the Marshall Plan.
Because the markets, of course, are looking at all these comments and are a bit worried that everything will be undone. But one question, though, when you look at the map of Europe, Europe is still dominated by centre-right conservative parties. If elected, he will be quite lonely, I guess, in Europe. Do you think he can convince his partners, I'm thinking of Mr. Monti, but also particularly Germany, that things need to be changed and that the focus needs to be shifted towards growth?
You know, we work a lot with the SPD colleagues and Sigmar Gabriel, and you will see very soon this, you know, a family, social democrat family, on this orientation, because we have a responsibility. It's for the young people, it's for Greece, for the Greek people and for young people and others in Europe, because they cannot accept and give their trust in a Europe which is so unjust. And if their effort, fiscal effort, social effort, is just for unemployment and you know, the increasing of unfair situations. So I think it's a question of economical efficiency, it's a question of trust, and if you look what we say about employment, about growth and jobs, it is said by the markets. It is said also by big economical organisms, because we know that we are in recession if we don't have a strategy of investment.
But they also tell you need to cut spending, you need austerity.
Yes, François Hollande took engagements. He doesn't like that it is just austerity which is sanctified in a treaty, without any perspective and possibility to have this meaning of the European project, political project, that is after the peace between the people. We need to have also a peace, a social peace between people, between employed people, you know, and this is the prosperity of our citizens. So this is the way he will propose. If I see the letter of Mr. Cameron and other heads of states, they say we need investment. Okay. Do it.
Well, precisely, referring to this latter, indeed, David Cameron and a number of leaders sent a letter to Herman Van Rompuy, the President of the Council, 2 weeks ago, urging more measures to boost growth. But when you look at these measures, it's a very liberal agenda. It's somehow incompatible with what François Hollande is offering.
Well, we have to ask ourselves whether, for instance, 20 years after the establishment of the single market, it really helped us Europeans all over Europe. Yeah. Being a German politician, I can tell you that, of course, every cent, every euro invested into the single market was good, because Germany is the top winner of the single market. But if you are somebody in Crete, for instance, at the other end of Europe, who wants to produce a beer or a juice, and you can't bring to the shops your products because it's full of German products, and people there drink German beer in Crete and German juice. I think we have to rethink that. That hasn't anything to do with left or right, liberal, social. I'm fed up with that. We have to see there are results. The results are bad for some people, very, very good for others. And that is why, and Madame Lagarde is not a socialist, but she said we have to look at the aggressive export strategy, for instance, of Germany. It doesn't work in a world, in a Europe that wants to live peaceful and wants to spread wealth all over Europe, and not only in Germany. We have to rethink it. Stability and austerity pact is one thing, but there is much more to do. I invite Monsieur Hollande to tackle all this also.
It takes two to dance a tango, I think she said, Lagarde. Now, as we heard from Jorgo, the risk, of course, is that the Franco-German couple could be damaged if François Hollande is elected and they start on such a bad basis. What is your assessment? Do you think that Hollande and Merkel could be reconciled if he's elected, of course?
You know, the legitimacy of a head of state is given by the votes. So François Hollande respects Mrs. Merkel. And what is very sure is that we want to have a very loyal and profound link to Germany. This is very important because we see that in this period there is a sort of bad reaction against, you know, Germany, and this is not the feeling we want to support. So we need to show that it is a very privileged relationship but not exclusive. We need to have a balance for the decision, legitimacy through the advice and judgment of the parliaments, national parliaments, European Parliament. And we know that if we have a correct methodology, if we have a correct strategy for economical efficiency, what it is today? It is to find, a mobilization of the public and private money for long-term investments. We need to have a euro obligation for the solidarity with the countries which are in difficulty, but we need also a tax on the transaction, the financial transaction tax, to give some possibilities to have to increase our capacities, because no country, no member state in Europe can just with the national budget find a way of growth. So we need to make it together and to find a way to do it.
Jorgo, very briefly, you know Angela Merkel. Will she get used to François Hollande if he gets elected?
I'm sure Catherine just reminded us that Ségolène Royal was, of course, then Mrs. Merkel did see her before she was elected, but that was at a time where we had the great coalition in Germany. So Angela Merkel needed to give good signals also to her social democrat partner. I can tell you that if Monsieur Hollande will be elected, it could be a hard time for my party, because Mrs. Merkel might be urged to get back into a coalition with the Social Democrats in Germany in order, well, to get things done. And that might be hard for my party, because my party then is superfluous in the government.
Okay, well, that's all we've got time for, I'm afraid. But thank you very much indeed for taking part in this edition of Talking Europe. Catherine Trottmann and Jorgo Chatzimarkakis. Please stay tuned on France 24. We'll return after the news break. I'll talk to the Russian ambassador to the European Union as Vladimir Putin gets a third term in the Kremlin. I'll ask him to react to allegations of fraud during the election.